the visualization of it as well. So I put together this class, and if you've been following my stuff at all lately, I have really been going, diving a little bit deeper into the like intuitive eating. And for the longest time, I felt kind of this like pull between intuitive eating and what I would call as intentional eating, right? Because most of the time, well, I would say 100% of the time, when people hire me, they have a specific goal they want to get to. Most of the time, that's going to include some kind of like weight loss. And so intentional eating is super, super, super helpful. But the ultimate goal for me as a coach is to get people to a place of a more intuitive space for themselves. And I'll show you why in a second. So for a long time, I kind of felt this pull of like, is it intuitive? Is it intentional? And I've really over the last year found this way to kind of blend these two things together and kind of help guide people onto this path that leaves you in a place that is a much more sustainable place to be, right? So we've all probably been on that diet roller coaster, that diet merry-go-round where you're, and I'll talk about this more in a minute, where you're on the diet, you're off the diet, you're on the diet, off the diet. And so that obviously is not something that feels really good, and it's not something that works long-term. So what I want to talk about tonight are these 5 things that have nothing to do with what you eat, nothing to do with exercise, but some really simple steps. I had it at 6, but I condensed it down to 5. Simple steps to help you get unstuck, increase your joy, and then start seeing results. So if you feel stuck, if you feel like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I do this? I'm here and I want to be here and I can't figure out how to get there. And every Monday I say I'm going to start, and every beginning of every month I say I'm going to start, and then I don't. In fact, I do the opposite. This is going to help you, I promise. Okay. So the first thing is, let's talk a little bit about what the problem is. Okay. Tell me if you can relate to this, right? So I talk to women all the time, and they come to me feeling a lot of negative emotion. Some of the things, I mean, it could be this, it could be even more, but the big ones I hear are frustrated, overwhelmed, a lot of like shame, a lot of negative self-talk. Sometimes they just feel hopeless, like it's just not possible for me. And certainly around food and their body and their weight, there's like a lack of joy. There's a lack of fun. It just feels really hard and really impossible. And so I see these 4 things, whether people realize it or not, that are converging in to create that. Okay. So as women, we have so much mental and emotional programming, literally. So if you don't know, my day job right now is I'm the computer teacher at my girls' school, and we do coding programs. I help the kids do it. And so it's so interesting to me, because I'm like, what I'm doing with them with coding is so much like coaching, right? Because they will get stuck on a problem and they do not understand why their code isn't working, right? And my job is to come along and be like, oh, you're supposed to turn left instead of turn right. Oh, you need to move forward a few more times. You need to do this, you need to do that. And they're like, oh, and then, right, the code works. And it's really the same thing. When people come to me, when we start working together, there's a certain kind of coding. And this coding feels so true, feels so real. So we have emotional coding around what we've been taught a woman's body should look like. Maybe you learned that growing up. Maybe you learned that from magazines, TV shows, whatever. Our society puts on us some sort of pressure about what a woman's body should look like, right? That may not be true. It may not be true what your body should look like, but that's what we feel. Then we have the diet industry, right? Which, if you think about it, is a really new thing. Like, my grandparents didn't grow up going to gyms and going to, being on Weight Watchers and doing all those things. There's not anything necessarily wrong with that, except for that what it's done is it's caused a lot of women to feel like they don't know how to eat, right? Think about it. It's like all of a sudden they've lost their confidence in their ability to know how to eat, even the most basic thing. So we're constantly looking outside of ourselves, like, somebody tell me, do I need to count this? Do I need to count that? Do I need to eat this? Do I need to eat that? And some of that, again, is fine. Some direction is good, but not to the point where we start to feel like we don't know what our own body needs, right? And I'll get more into that in a minute. Then we have the food industry. There's a really good documentary on Amazon Prime. If you get a chance to watch it, it's called That Sugar Film. I recommend it to all my clients, because what you see in there is that food industries are literally paying millions, billions of dollars for scientists to figure out how to make food as addicting as possible, especially with things like sugar and white flour and alcohol and all those things, which again, in and of themselves, it's fine, right? But when we start to understand that, right, what these certain foods do is they're giving us this huge hit of dopamine. They have a very addicting factor. So you have that competing with the diet industry that's like, don't eat any of these foods, and then the food industry making them as addicting as possible. And then the final thing is that most of us, hand raised here, right, we have increased stress, lack of time, and most of us have never really learned how to process through our emotions, like just on a day-to-day basis. I'm not talking about hardcore therapy. I'm just talking about day-to-day basis, being able to just process through the stuff that's coming up. So we're carrying a lot of emotion, oftentimes a lot of negative emotion. And here's all this food, this quick, easy food that is highly addictive. But then on the other hand, we're having all this guilt and all this angst about how we should look, how we should be losing weight, what the diet books say. And it's just creating this like stuck point. You can literally feel it in your body, right? If you're in that place, it feels terrible. And it's like weighing you down. And so you're probably in this constant battle of, I'm going to get started, I'm going to do it, and then not, right? And maybe even those thoughts are even pushing you further and further back. And that's where it can just feel like hopeless, right? So I want to show you guys a different way of approaching this that, again, has nothing to do with how many grams of protein you should be eating or how to do squats or any of that. All that stuff's fine. That's what I was telling this to a client the other day. We were talking about some of her things that she was stuck with. And she's like, so it's not about what I eat and exercise. And I was like, no, it's 100% about what you eat and exercise. But what I want to do is help you get to the point where doing those things is easy. Right now, it feels hard. Right now, it feels like a struggle. Right now, it feels like you have to talk yourself into it. And you're imagining the rest of your life having to do that. What I'm trying to do is shift for you your belief system, so that all of a sudden, those things, the actions you need to take to get to the results, feel fun, feel easy, right? Not all the time, but easier than they do right now. So that all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can do this. Okay, so the first thing that I see that I have been through in my life, and I know a lot of people have. All right, I'm just gonna double check and make sure I'm still on live and not like just talking to myself. Okay, hey, and if y'all have any questions, feel free to post them in, and I'll try to grab them from my phone because I can't see y'all on my computer screen for some reason. Okay, can y'all relate to this, right? Oh my gosh, this is so me. This was me for most of my life in many areas, but especially with food. So on one hand, we have all these rules, all these ideas. We want to be good, right? We think there's a certain very kind of restricted path that's going to lead to the body that we want, the health that we want. That's on one end. Then there's the other side, which is like a yin and a yang, which we call bad. One of the things, like, I so want, if you don't get anything else out of this tonight, what I want you to do is drop the words good and bad from your vocabulary when it comes to food. Everybody I talk to is like, I was good or I was bad. I just want you to drop that all the way, because this is what it does. It keeps us going back and forth between good and bad. Bad is this overindulgence. I was bad. I ate the things I wasn't supposed to be eating, but this is the side that also feels fun and it feels free, right? But it like can lead to unwanted consequences that we don't want. So we go over on this side, we feel free. It's so good to get rid of the rules, but then all of a sudden we're like, oh, I've gained weight. I don't feel good. My energy's down. Okay, I'm going to get strict. I'm going to do it. I'm going to be good now. And then we ping pong over into deprivation. And we can do it for a little while. We can willpower our way through it for a bit, but it's not sustainable. It feels terrible. And then we rebound back over into overindulgence. And it's just this back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, right? It's awful. It's not a way to live. And again, it's not going to lead to anything long term. So if you're somebody that's like, I gain the weight, then I lose the weight. I gain the weight, then I lose the weight. Why? What is wrong with me? Nothing's wrong with you. But the first thing we have to do is like demolish this whole system. Okay. So that we will get to in a minute. We will demolish it in a minute. But this is step one. You guys ready? This is what I want you to do. I want you first and foremost to connect to the thing that you really, really want the most for yourself around your health. I mean, you can do this with anything, but you're probably here for health reasons. I really want you to connect to what it is that you want the most. Every single client, every single consult, every single woman, I think pretty much without exception, I will say, okay, tell me what you want. And the conversation will go something like this. Well, I mean, I'd love to, but I just want to be a good example for my kids. I mean, I'll just be happy if I just can just get a size down. So they start to back up their goal of what they want. All right. Now, what's happening is this is the first thing that's keeping you stuck, because deep down what you want is what you want. It's there, right? But we feel this like guilt. We feel like, oh, I'm too vain, or I'm asking for too much. And the problem is, until you're really, really honest with yourself about what you want, and you remove all the guilt around it and all the like thoughts about it being like, I don't know, not available to you, or, oh, I'm vain because I want that, you will be stuck, right? You have to say what it is that you really want, and you have to own it. So I want to give you full permission. Sit down with yourself, journal it, say it out loud, tell it to your best friend, email it to me, but get really honest about what you really, really want, right? Whether that's to lose a certain amount of weight, whether that's to fit into a certain size clothing, whether that's to whatever. Because here's the thing, all of that, what's beneath it, what we really want is a feeling, right? Why? And this is what you can do. First of all, what is it that you really want? Answer it without any guilt. Then start asking yourself why. And ask yourself why 5 times. See how far down you can dig into that. Because what we really want, and this is going to be really important in a minute, is a feeling, right? When you imagine stepping on the scale and seeing that dream number, when you imagine putting on your clothes in the morning and they just fit amazingly, when you imagine having energy, when you imagine running the 5K, when you imagine those things, how do you imagine yourself? How do you imagine feeling? So step one is really get honest with yourself and own it. Own it. If you get on a call with me, tell me, be like, girl, I want to lose that. Like just own it. That is your deepest desire. Your desire is good. It's there for a reason. It's helping move you towards the healthiest version of yourself in every way. Okay, I promise you're not vain or bad because you want to do that. Okay, so that's step one, full permission. Step two, this is fun, guys. Throw away the rule book. All right, we all have one. I still find myself getting stuck in mine, and I have to like manage my mind around it a lot. But the first thing I want you to do is completely throw away the rules that you have. So we all have a manual. Now, some of those rules are good. We're going to move them back in. But one of the spiritual coaches that I listen to, he always talks about you have to move the furniture out first. So we have this like cluttered brain with all these rules. Some of them we don't even know where we picked them up along the way. Like don't eat this, don't eat this time of day, don't eat this time of day, eat small frequent meals, eat only 2 meals, do this, do that. It's just causing a ton of clutter and confusion. So I want you to have permission to just wipe the slate clean and start fresh. You're going to build your own rule book. So some of those things, again, as you're going through, you can pull them back in, like eating vegetables, right? Like that's a good one you can put in your rule book. But some of these things, it may just be things that you've picked up along the way that don't really work for you, right? So let me give you a classic example. You might have heard that you should eat breakfast first thing in the morning. It's the most important meal of the day. It revs your metabolism, da 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 da. You may not be a breakfast person, but you're like forcing yourself because you think that you should. But the truth is, there's a ton of research now around intermittent fasting and not eating breakfast until you're hungry that actually works really, really well for people. So I don't eat breakfast first thing in the morning. I usually wait at least an hour to eat anything, right? And there's some science behind that and the way your body works, which I won't get into tonight. But that's an example of a rule that you might have picked up along that really doesn't work for you. And guess what? You can throw it away and have a more intuitive eating pattern that works for you and actually helps you get better results. So throw the rule book away, and then what you're doing is you're starting to build back the things that feel good to you by paying attention to how your body feels. One of the things I want to say here that's so important about this, about throwing away the rule book, is this. When you feel like the power is outside of you, if you're doing things because a book told you to, because Melissa told you to, because another coach told you to, because whatever, it instantly sets you up to rebel, right? So when you don't see yourself as the authority, now it's not meaning that we can't take wisdom from different places, right? It's not saying that you can't learn things and be like, oh yeah, that's really helpful information that I can, integrate into my thing. But when you're doing it because you feel like you have to, you should, some authority out there is whoever, right, telling you should do this, you're either going to shut down or you're eventually going to rebel. You might do it for a while, but it makes you feel small. It makes you feel like you can't make the choices for you. So again, pull in what's helpful for you, but I really want you to see yourself as the authority of your body, of your diet, of what you decide to eat, all of those things. Okay, super important. All right, so step 3 is we want to reconnect to our body. I don't know why the pictures are a little fuzzy, but we want to reconnect to our body. So this is as you're building your rule book back in. How you're doing this is by listening to your body. So I'll get to this in the next step. We have our brain, we have our mind, and then we have our intuition. Your intuition lives in your body, not in your brain, in your mind. Now, our brain, supercomputer, amazing, wonderful. We can use it for our advantage. But if you've noticed, your mind can also cause you to spin out in a million different directions. So step 3, to start building back that new rule book that, and I don't want to call it a rule book, but building back the manual that you're going to use. We call it a protocol when I work with clients or in my groups. Building back the protocol that works for you, you listening to your body. How does the food make you feel? When you eat this way, how does it make you feel? When you eat this food, how does it make you feel? You're doing it with zero judgment. I always use the phrase compassionate curiosity. So you're eating something and you're just noticing, oh, like I'll give you a great example that happened to me recently. I just discovered this past week. I was having like tons of stomach issues for like 4 weeks. I could not figure it out. And I've been doing my body transformation program. So I've been eating pretty healthy and I've been eating a lot more vegetables. And I was like, okay, maybe that's it. I don't know. Like I've never like been this just like, whoa. And I finally figured out I've been taking collagen every morning in my coffee because, all this stuff that says it's good. And it is, it's definitely helped my nails grow. But I finally figured out, oh my gosh, that's what it is. Stop taking it, stomach feels way better, right? So that's just an example of something where you're just listening and paying attention to your body and going like, okay, even though, other people are saying that's good, that doesn't work for my body. I wish it did. I want long, pretty nails, but it's not worth it for the tummy pain. So that's what you're doing. You're just connecting back to that intuitive space inside of you that knows what's best for you. Okay, one of the things that I teach that's a really easy starting point with this, if you're like, I don't even know how to listen to my body, I'm so disconnected from my body, is the hunger scale. So I know if you've ever done one of my programs, we have talked about this. It's kind of evolved over the years, but I just love this as a simple place to start to just figure out where you're at. And again, you're just doing this with complete compassion and curiosity. But you're just paying attention to your hunger and your fullness cues, right? I'm shocked how many times I go to eat and realize that physically I'm not hungry at all. It's all emotional, right? And sometimes that's fine. I mean, sometimes you know, we're going to do that. But just taking that 5 seconds to check in with my body and be like, okay, wait, where am I on the hunger scale? It's huge. It's a game changer. And it's one of the things that most of the people that have worked with me come back and say this is something that they use years and years and years down the road. It's a simple thing that you can integrate and just, it's almost like meditative. It just gives you a second to, again, connect back to yourself. Okay, so using some sort of hunger scale, either this one or 0 to 10 or something, is a really beautiful starting point for intuitive eating. Okay, step number 4, manage your mind. All right, so as I mentioned, and I'm just checking really quick, make sure I'm still on and not just talking to myself. Okay, looks like I still am on, maybe. Yeah, okay. Perfect. Okay, so as I mentioned, we've got our like body, our intuition, and then we have our brain, we have our mind. Okay, so the reason I have a garden here is this, because when we talk about managing the mind, it's kind of like weeding a garden, right? So when we start looking at our mind, what you're going to see is that you have all these little thoughts that are actually the things that are keeping you stuck, that we want to weed out and get rid of. It's amazing how when we start to do this, and it takes some time, it's just like exercise, like it's a muscle that we have to work and we have to strengthen. But as you learn to start catching thoughts, and as you learn to start seeing which thoughts aren't serving you, and start kind of either changing them or just getting rid of them, how much faster and with how much more joy and ease you can move towards your goals. Okay, so here is why this is so huge. Every thought we have creates some sort of an emotional response within our body. What is it? Energy can't be destroyed or created. It's only changed. This is really what it is. Thoughts are this chemical or this neural activity in our brain that literally goes down into our body. So every thought we have is creating some sort of emotional response. Now, some of them are pretty minor, right? Like, I need to pick up bread at the store is not going to create a big emotion on I don't know. But a lot of the thoughts that we're having about our body and about food and about weight are creating a really negative emotional response. And it's almost like a habit that we have to think these thoughts over and over that actually aren't serving us at all, that are actually keeping us stuck. So emotions are the fuel. So the actions, remember I said before, the actions that you want to take, you already know. You 100% already know what to do, right? As far as exercise, be more active, eat cleaner, all of those things. Now, yeah, things you can learn possibly, but I guarantee you, you already know so much more than you think you do. So then the question is, well, how do we take consistent action to getting to the place that we want to get to? And the answer is your emotional fuel. So if you are, and I have this emotion wheel over here, which side is it on? All emotions are meant to be experienced as a human, right? We don't want to just be happy all the time. I don't want to be happy when my dog dies. That makes me like a sociopath, right? We want to experience a range of emotion. So it's not about just being happy all the time. It's about experiencing emotions and knowing how to process through them. But when we're talking specifically about a goal, like weight loss or eating better or whatever, we want to be as full as possible of the emotions that are going to fuel us and help us to get there faster. Think about back to what I said in the beginning, connecting back to your deepest desires. When you picture that version of yourself, the healthiest version of yourself, what kind of emotions do you think that person, that woman is experiencing on a day-to-day basis that's different than what you're experiencing now? Right? So you think about the version of yourself that physically is the healthiest, that looks the best, that puts on her clothes and feels amazing, that steps on the scale and it's great. Do you picture her like, you know, constantly anxious and frustrated and overwhelmed? Or do you picture her in a like peaceful, happy place? And that's a really important question to answer that we're going to come back to in a minute. So here's the thing. Most of us think we have to get to the place before we experience the happiness and the joy and the peace. It's not true. I'm going to show you why. So I really want you to start to think in terms of the thoughts that you're having about your body. Are these thoughts that elevate you or descend you? Elevate means they bring you up. They're more positive emotions, okay? Descend means they're taking you down, right? We think about like depression, right? It's a more negative place. It's almost like an energetic vibe. It is an energetic vibe. That's really all emotions are. They're just energy in our body. So is this an energy that pulls you up, or is this an energy that pulls you down, right? And you can just take out each thought and look, when you have the thought, I hate my body, okay? If you think that, how does that make you feel in your body? Is that giving you emotional fuel to want to move towards your goal? It might give you a little quick burst of just like wanting to get away from the badness, but it's not a sustaining fuel. It's not something that's going to help you take consistent action and get to the place that you want to go. And this really correlates with the different parts of our brain. So when we're looking at behavior change, and I talk about this a lot with my clients, I always talk about the adult brain and the toddler brain. And we're in this sort of constant battle between this higher brain center, right, the prefrontal cortex, that is helping us make more, long-term planning decisions and delaying gratification. And then our lower brain center, which I call the toddler brain. If you've ever had a toddler, they want what they want when they want it, and if they don't get it, they're going to have a temper tantrum. So those lower brain centers, they want that dopamine hit. They do not care what the consequence is, right? So when we're in a state where we're carrying a lot of negative emotion, we're acting more from that lower brain center. We're acting more from that toddler brain. So if you think those negative emotions and those negative thoughts are helping you, they're like motivating you in some way, they're not. Stop it. Stop being mean to yourself. I promise you, if you start practicing saying kind things, finding things about your body that you love, saying that over and over, and it is a practice. It's like a really weak muscle, because most of us are so conditioned to speak negatively to ourselves, we don't even realize it, right? I was talking to somebody on the phone like a few weeks ago about this, and I was like, do you hear the way you're talking to yourself? And they were like, oh my gosh, I'm so mean to myself. You're so mean to yourself, right? And that's going to keep us down. That's going to keep us stuck. So managing our mind is being really careful. What are you going to allow your brain to think, right? Okay. So step 5, pulling it all together. And I love this. I love this so much. So step 5 is what I call build a bridge. So with what we've talked about tonight, I want you to envision, just like I have here on this screen, the current you, right, who feels stuck, who feels frustrated, who feels overwhelmed, who feels like she's not where she wants to be, who feels like she's not showing up for herself, who's not taking care of herself in the way that she wants. And then across this cavern, or whatever this is, right, this canyon, on this other side, you're seeing that person that you imagined in the beginning, right? When you think about your deepest desire, when you think about your healthiest self, when you think about your best self, the person that's showing up for yourself every day and taking the actions you want to be taking, and is in that place that feels really good. Okay, so you're picturing this. Most of us, we're looking across this canyon and we're like, oh my gosh, I've got to build this bridge, right? I've got to get to that person, and it feels so hard. It's like we're trying to build this bridge to get across, but it's going to take forever, and it's going to take so much effort, and we don't have really the tools we need, and blah, 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 blah. I feel like we're never going to get there. But what I want you to imagine is that that future version of yourself, that ideal version of yourself, is trying just as hard to get to you, right? So she's building a bridge to you as you're building a bridge to her. So what does that look like in practicality? I want you to go back and think about what I said in the beginning. When you picture her, what are the emotions that she's feeling? What does she feel when she puts on her clothes? What does she feel as she goes through her day? What does she feel when she can get up and play with the kids and it feels amazing? And what you're starting to do is, yes, part of it is you got to take the action. We got to do the things. We got to eat the right foods. We got to do the workouts. We got to do that. It's not just sitting around and wishing, right? But we're also just as much practicing feeling the emotion in our body that we want to feel. We're not waiting to get there to feel better. We start to practice it. We start to connect back to our body. One of the things I want to really have you think about is, do you feel like your body is on your side, or do you feel like it's your enemy? Because a lot of times when women talk to me, it's almost like their body is against them. It's like, I'm trying all these things, I'm doing all the right things, and the scale won't budge. My body just won't. It's like it hates me. It's like it won't. So I really want you to think about what's that relationship with your body, because if you think of it as your best friend, it wants what you want. It's on the same side. Then all of a sudden it's like this beautiful thing where you guys are running towards each other, right? This future version of you, this healthier, happier, unstuck version of you is running towards you as much as you're running towards her. Okay, so that's the building the bridge. So yes, do the things, but also slow down, get quiet, connect back to your body, and start to practice feeling. So for example, what does this look like? Y'all know I'm all about joy. All my programs are called joy, joyful this, joyful that. What does joy feel like in your body? Can you pull that up? So to me, joy feels different than like, you know, happiness. Joy, happiness is kind of fluttery and up here. Joy to me is like a deep emotion. It feels like it comes down from like the gut, and it's like I picture little golden bubbles like bubbling up and like washing over everything else. I can feel joyful even in a bad day. I can feel joyful even in a stressful moment. It's like something that's deeper than all of that. So you can practice feeling, you can practice thinking about, you can practice connecting to those emotions that you want, and that's going to attract the things that you need. It's going to help you take action so much faster. Okay, so those are the 5 steps. I'm just getting on here to make sure nobody has any questions and make sure I'm still on live. If not, this is being recorded, I hope. Okay, so that is the 5 steps that I want you guys to think about if you're feeling stuck and frustrated, okay? Leaving you with this, then I'll tell you guys about my next program that's starting next Monday. And this is so true, okay? You are magic. You are literally made from stardust. You are literally made from stardust. So don't reduce yourself down to a number on the scale or to the way your clothes are fitting. You are the creator of your health, your life, your dreams. I promise you, if you're feeling stuck and frustrated, you does not have to stay that way, okay? Practice elevating your thoughts, connecting to your intuition each day. You'll be amazed, 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 amazed at how it changes your life. Like crazy, crazy. Okay, it's so fun.